Welcome to Bright Light News, everybody. We are pleased to have here a special guest today. We have Ben. He's the owner and driver of the crane truck that had the flatbed with a makeshift stage that featured an incredible array of presenters on a daily basis for the 3 weeks before the stage was taken down.
Guys, the best stage in the world. We'd like to thank the owner of this crane truck. Anytime you need a crane, this is the guy.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. Ben, can you tell us, that truck with the flag hanging at half mast? I mean, everybody recognized that. It's been photographed, it's been videoed a ton of times. It was the center mark of the convoy there in Ottawa. When you went to Ottawa, did you expect this to happen? Was it planned out that you were going to be hosting the stage?
No, not at all, actually. I was probably halfway, about 1.5 kilometers down the convoy off to the west on Wellington when I first got there. And so I set up on the street the first night I raised the flag. And the next morning I had a call from a contact in London, and he says somebody will be coming by on foot to see me, and they're wondering if they can use my truck as a stage. And so he proceeded to tell me that they had permits to build a stage of sorts out in the front lawn of Parliament. And I guess when they showed up to assemble the stage or build it, the permits that they had to do this all of a sudden weren't any good. So they didn't let them actually set up the stage, which they had initially planned for. And so the second day of being there, somebody approached us on the ground and on Wellington Street and asked if I would mind coming up to the main intersection in front of Parliament so that they could use my truck as a stage, and the flag, flying the flag for that whole thing was just kind of a bonus for me. So
yeah, it's incredible. Your truck is world famous now. That stage has been viewed by, I would guess, millions of people around the world and inspired millions. Speaking about the flag, that flag has a special meaning. Can you tell us about the flag?
Yeah, it's actually quite beautiful. So I came down with my own flag, and it was just a bit smaller than the one that was donated to me. And a member of the Canadian government actually sent it out in a package to my truck and said that he would be honored if I would have that flag and fly it. And it comes with a letter stating why he had gotten, or who the letter or who the flag came to from before he received it. And so the Canadian government had given this flag, and it flew on the Peace Tower in 2015, to the best of my understanding from reading the letter. So it's pretty special.
And unfortunately, there is a sad ending to that flag. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when they folded back the crane, because the Saturday of when they pushed us all out, I still had the crane fully erected, and it was still standing and flying the flag. So when they packed everything down and they towed it out, they either took the flag or they threw it out, or I'm not sure what has happened to it, but I lost it, which is really too bad, because I imagine giving away a flag like that, especially after receiving it from the Canadian government at some point, is probably a pretty special honor to receive something like that.
That's a loss for the history of Canada, as well as yourself. Everybody, when they first arrived in Ottawa, they said, we don't know where to go. They're walking down the streets, and then lo and behold, there's that flag directing everybody, attracting everybody, right?
Yeah.
Well, we hope it will come back to you and get back into your possession.
That'd be awesome.
So if anybody knows about its whereabouts, please get in touch with us. We'll get it back to Ben. We'll make sure. Now, in terms of the Freedom Convoy, you're in Ontario as well, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Why did you go and join the Freedom Convoy?
Well, my story is a little different than most of the guys that were there and with their trucks. They had either lost their job already or were about to. I work in the construction industry, and construction has been like real busy for the last 2 years actually, and so there was no shortage of work for me. But
Or vaccine
I knew
mandates for you guys?
no, not at this point. But I could see that it was coming because there's groups of other professions that were getting these mandates already, and they're smart like that. If they would have attacked everybody or told everybody at the same time that now you have to be vaxxed or implement the mandate for everybody at the same time, that would have probably gone over a lot harder than mandating all these small little groups of people working separately. So I knew it was coming, and so yeah, I just knew I had to go and support these guys.
All right. So you went again for the right to be able to choose what goes into our body and not have that mandated unconstitutionally.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. You had mentioned when the flag was taken down, that was Saturday, February 19th. That was day 2 of the police violence when they were taking back Wellington Street, the supposed insurrection where they were removing apparent terrorists, violent people amid bouncy castles, amidst, family events, dancing, celebrations, flag waving. It's all a crazy narrative that's happened. It's still unbelievable that it took place like this and shook down how it did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were there with the truck. I mean, you were there every day. Every day there were speakers from world famous doctors, famous French groups come up and sing. Brian Peckford, police officers, military veterans, Muslim community members, people from all faiths, all religions, all walks of life. I mean, it was an incredible, caravan of people coming to fight for their freedoms. What was it like for you to be there every day in your truck experiencing this?
I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I just went to an event this weekend, and I was pretty tired by the end of it. But I tell you, being in Ottawa had a different energy. Staying there, and some days we pulled off long days, and at the end of even a long day, I wasn't exhausted. The energy that was in Ottawa, the unity, the love, you could have gone 24 hours a day pretty much, and you'd still be in good shape. So the experience was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. It was just beautiful. You couldn't capture it in a video, and you can't explain it in words. You pretty much had to be there. It's amazing.
I am right now, the way that you're describing it, I am feeling tingles inside my body because I know exactly what you're talking about. You could not experience anything like that without being there. It was, in my 50 plus years of living, the first time I felt proud to be Canadian. That was something that was echoed by so many people.
Oh yeah.
Being there as a journalist, doing 10 to 12-hour days of work, it's exactly the same. I did not feel exhausted. Though I was tired, I was still energized to keep going and going and going because it was incredible.
It really was.
What are some of the highlights for you being there?
Definitely meeting people. And when I think about the people that I've met, there's two Ottawa residents that come to mind. Mother and her daughter, they were there, and they came from Bulgaria, and so they know the fight that we're fighting. And I'll never forget her. She come up to my truck the one evening, and this older lady and her daughter, and I could tell that she was trying to get my attention. So I get out of my truck and I come down onto the ground to just say hi. And she gave me a hug, and she just held me so tight, like this old lady had a good grip on her. and she's like talking into my ear, and she's just begging me not to leave. And she's somebody, her and her daughter is somebody that I really had a connection with. They ended up taking my laundry, doing my laundry for me, and you know, I was just so blessed by them. They the first night I met her, she proceeded to tell me where she's from, and she wore like glasses, and they were kind of tight up against her cheeks over here. And as she's telling me this story, the bottom of her glasses were filling up with tears as she's telling me that how it breaks her heart to see Canada fighting the same war that she escaped from in Bulgaria. And it just, you know, it was heartbreaking and just an honor just to be there and to meet these fine folks. Like, it's just beautiful. Definitely somebody I'll never forget.
Yeah, it must have been an incredible feeling to have somebody. I mean, so many stories of people coming and laying down their pains and their hopes and telling them that they're resting on you, that we need you. That's quite a big responsibility.
You know, I hadn't come to stay. You know, as the first weekend approached, my plan was to head out the first following Monday. I figured that's what the convoy was. We were just going to go down. Whoever could hang out longer, fine, you know. And it was these stories that came up, and people just telling you that they've found hope again to live. And you know, some of these stories I'll probably never know what that all entails, to have hope to live again. But I can only imagine. And so at that point, I knew I couldn't leave, and I had my heart set and my mind made up that I wasn't going anywhere for as long as I could. So
special and life-changing events indeed. So you mentioned that there were other Ottawa residents that approached you. Can you tell us, were there some that were for, some that were against? Give us some examples.
Very few against what we were doing in Ottawa, and I met lots of Ottawa residents, and they were just super stoked and happy, and they begged us not to leave Ottawa, you know, because they could feel that there was change in the air and that something beautiful was happening. And so, I mean, maybe two people that I met personally that were against us being there, but you know, the locals who supported us said, you know, that they're always going to be there, these negative Nancys, because they complain about every concert or Canada Day event, you know, so there's nothing that's going to appease these people. But for the majority and so many that came out, it was, they encouraged us to stay there. This one guy in particular, he lived down the road, maybe a stone's throw away. And he said he loved that we were there. And he says he can hear the honking at night, but he says it didn't even bother him. If it woke him up, he just stuck earplugs in his ears and he continued to sleep. So
that's wonderful. Now, can you tell us, how did you feel about the coverage, the narrative that was being put out there by the politicians, the police, the mainstream media, saying that, again, this was an insurrection and Ottawa was under siege, it was dangerous for the Ottawa citizens, they were being terrorized, there were white nationalists there, and we all know the story. How did you react to that?
You know, even now when I go through some of the videos, it's very frustrating. Like, for somebody to say that there was violence and the city was under siege and the people of Ottawa were being harassed, and it wasn't the case at all. Like, that scene in Ottawa for 3 weeks was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. How you can't explain it except that it was supernatural to bring that amount of people together for 3 weeks and not have an incident where somebody, you know, even at the very least, a fight broke out. Like, we even never even heard of a single instance where that had happened. So for the news to say that, and I watched a little coverage on GoFundMe being in court or whatever, and they claim that they shut GoFundMe down for the convoy due to, you know, the Ottawa police and mayor saying that there's violence happening, and you know why they would be part of something like that. But that was the furthest from the truth. It was every walk of life was on the red zone, as they call it, and everybody was loving each other. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredible. I believe there wasn't a single police report filed for violence preceding the actual violence that came with the police on the Friday, February the 18th. And now speaking about that, Friday, February the 18th, they kind of the police set up a perimeter around that zone, the checkpoints and whatnot. And then on the Saturday, they started to come down Wellington to remove all the trucks and the stage. Tell us about that experience for you, because you went through something that was pretty horrific.
Yeah, so the Friday of, I assumed, because they set up barricades down to the east of us, where from the intersection, and I assumed that that's probably as far as they were going to go. They showed some muscle and tried to intimidate trucks to leave. And so I was actually very surprised at what happened that Saturday morning when they came in, you know, decently quick, as opposed to the day before. They were moving very slow and covered very little ground, even within hours. And so Saturday they moved in, you know, like fast compared to the Friday. And so when I saw them approach my truck, I figured, you know what, my plan was to close the windows, lock the doors, make it as complicated as possible to remove my truck from where it was.
And let me just ask you, while they were approaching, and you see these guys in riot gear, tactical gear, with semi-automatic weapons, with tear gas. I mean, these guys are looking like military, a police state that we've never seen before, except for like the G20, right? For a peaceful display of civil disobedience. What was your feeling there? Were you scared? Were you, what were you feeling?
Well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, that I hadn't been nervous. But my heart was set to stay. And same with most guys that were still there that morning. We had made up our minds that we were going to stay as long as we could, or as long as it took. And when I saw them approach my truck, I mean, I got out of my truck. At that point, I seen what they were doing to trucks that had their windows closed.
Smashing.
I mean, they didn't even so much as go for the door latch to try and open the door to see if it was unlocked or anything. They just went straight for the windows, and I figured, wow, no point in doing that. So I opened the windows, I unlocked the doors, and I stepped outside the truck, and I just stood there. And
what proceeded from there?
They proceeded to push me across the intersection up. So there was a line of trucks that were facing me from there. And I ended up on the grill of the one truck, a friend of mine. So at that point, I had nowhere to go. I was backed up against the truck, and there's officers, beating me with their batons and whatnot, telling me to move. And I was asking them, where do you want me to go? Like, you're surrounded me.
Were you resisting at all? Were you fighting back? What were you doing?
I wasn't fighting. No, resisting, the only resisting that I would have done is I wasn't stepping back. So any movement they got from me was just pushing me. So I wasn't willingly walking away from it. They pretty well just pushed me up to that point, at which point I had nowhere to go. And out of nowhere, a guy comes out from behind the front officers and sprays pepper spray on my face. And somebody kicked the feet out from under me, and that was kind of took me out there for a bit.
And what happened after that? Did they arrest you? Were you in pain?
No, I wasn't arrested. The crowd that was beside the truck, somebody got a hold of me and yanked me out from all the hustle and bustle that was going on there, and it felt like I was I didn't have any weight to me. They just grabbed me and pulled me right out as if, you know, I was a little kid. And my brother was actually down there, and he was behind the crowd that pulled me out, and he grabbed me by my arm and led me back to my hotel room, where I was able to, you know, kind of take care of that pepper spray in my face. So,
That's great to see. So you're pulled to safety very quickly by the supporters
yeah.
there and your brother.
I was very grateful. I had no idea how pepper spray actually can affect a person. You know, that can really take you out.
Well, listen, I don't know what that feels like, and I feel like hopefully most of our viewers don't know. Can you share what that felt like?
Well, initially it was just well, initially meaning the 3 hours following, I couldn't open my eyes without actually grabbing my eyelids and prying them open with my fingers because it burnt so bad. It was nearly impossible to open my eyes, and not just in my eyes, like getting it on your skin. It burns like a. It's insane how all that stuff works.
So it's spread from whatever parts touch the actual spray.
Yeah.
Keeping your eyes closed helped the burning a little bit.
No, not really. I mean, I think my eyes were trying to wash it out, so my tears were consistently flowing. Like it was a constant thing happening with my eyes. Even 2 days after, my eyes were still very watery and tears running just to get. You know, it was probably 5 hours after my wife came to Ottawa, and she met me in the hotel room after I had gotten pepper sprayed. So I had everything washed, and the tears were still rolling because my eyes were so sensitive to me opening them. And she proceeded to wipe them off my face. And at some point during the evening, she touched her face from the tears that were on her fingers, and she said her face burnt from my tears.
Incredible absorption from the pepper
Yeah.
spray.
Yeah, it's insane.
Okay.
It's a very good deterrent.
Yeah.
I can see why they use it.
And it's still incredible that this narrative that it was the protesters and the Freedom Convoy truckers and participants who were the ones that were being violent. I mean, it's mind-blowing that this narrative is happening. What does that tell you about the state of Canada when we have a majority of the people listening to the mainstream media listening to this saying, yes, you guys have white nationalist backgrounds, you are terrorists, you know, speaking to you, your calm demeanor, there's a sincerity in your tone, in your eyes. I do not feel a white terrorist inside you, you know.
That's good.
How does that make you feel? You are here to overthrow our government and, you know, jeopardize our safety and our way of living and, ironically, our democracy.
It's upsetting to say the least. You know, like another thing that you know, is kind of a bit of a revelation is while I was sitting there, and I thought, how can we as Canadians so freely give up our freedoms that our veterans fought and died for? And I had many veterans come up to me all the way from the West Coast, BC, just to come and say thank you to us. And, you know, at that point, I was like, you know what, this is going to be whatever it takes. I'm not willing to give this up because they fought, got injured, and even died for the freedoms that we are supposed to be able to enjoy in this beautiful country. So.
Yeah, it's incredible. You were the front line fighting for freedom now, taking the place of those veterans. I mean,
yeah, it was an honor to be. I mean, I don't consider myself to be a veteran. I was just doing what any Canadian should have done, you know, to stand up for the very rights that we have because of our veterans.
Well,
so
listen,
it was an honor.
I think it's safe to say that you were enlisted for active duty at your time there, and it seems like you are still on active duty because you're not giving this up.
No.
Bearing all this in mind with what happened, with the turn of events, we went from a beautiful, loving, unified, positive atmosphere to one stained by police violence, brutality, and propagandized media and politicians. The Emergencies Act invoked, the freezing of the funds for people who supported. Where does that leave you now? Has your feeling of the Freedom Convoy, the meaning of it, shifted since then, since first arriving?
Oh, definitely. When I first arrived, I had no idea the significance of what we were about to start there. And so I went to just join my friends and fellow truck drivers, and you know, it didn't take long. And you know, at that point, it was more than just a convoy. It's a war for freedom, and it'll be the first war that's probably been won by peace. And I hope it can stay that way. You know, I'd hate to see people get hurt, or you know, but yeah, that's all it was a war. It's a war for our freedom in this country because it's being taken away from us.
Right. Yeah. The fact that it turned into this place where, you know, the constitutional right for assembly, for freedom of speech was quashed with a police state and propagandized hatred and vilification for what you were representing there. It's incredible. It is safe to say that this is a war that many of the people, the masses, are asleep to because they have been inculcated with fear from, you know, 24/7 COVID fear mongering. And, you know, it's safe to say that their critical thinking abilities have been disabled, and they just are relying on the captors for the solution, which is to vilify and hate, right? I mean, what we're looking at is a dehumanization of people who are not going with the narrative, who have now become enemies of the state, who deserve, I mean, one of the comments that I saw on our recent post that we made with the interview with Shaba, the other truck driver who got beaten, somebody on Twitter commented that he deserved to get beaten up because of the inconveniences that they were causing there in Ottawa, right? And the laws that they were breaking. Let's move on to the legacy then of Freedom Convoy in there in Ottawa. What do you think was the significance, the impact, the lasting consequence of Freedom Convoy? I mean, it was such a massive worldwide attention-grabbing scene that sparked change across the world, definitely across our country in terms of policies that were not shifting before the Freedom Convoy. And again, other Freedom Convoys that were lit. We had people in the UK holding signs for Tamara Lich outside the embassy. We had Americans outside the embassy in New York City walking with signs and flags for Canada saying, "I am Canadian." We've got the trucker convoy in the US arriving in Washington shortly. You know, what is the legacy of Freedom Convoy for you?
It's a legacy of peace and love to our fellow human beings, fellow Canadians, and fellow Americans right now, like, well, worldwide, because the movement that started in Canada has grown beyond our borders. And the spirit of that movement, from what I can tell, is the same. Love for one another and just wanting unity with their neighbors. And yeah.
It seems like the greatest, I think, end goal that the Freedom Convoy could have achieved, which is to disarm what is happening with love and a message of love.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, I want to ask you then, what would be your message to Freedom Convoy supporters, people who are against the convoy, to all Canadians? What's your message to people?
For the ones that don't like it, I mean, I would ask a question. Since when has the Canadian flag and it being flown or waved around being offensive? I just can't wrap my head around that. When is standing up for freedom and your freedom of choice, when is that criminal? I don't understand. So the more eyes that we can open and the more people that can get away from that narrative that they've been fed by the mainstream media is just, if we can do that, then we've done good. Freedom Convoy supporters, I would just encourage you to keep pushing. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's do our local rallies. Let's continue to fly the Canadian flag, and just keep it peaceful. We're not out there to hurt people. We're just out there to open the eyes of those that don't see what's going on.
I love it. Respectful discourse. And for the Freedom Convoy supporters, keep the awareness being spread through peace, through positive action, and just try and wake other people up. And I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's in the court of public opinion that this will change, because that's what seems to be holding us down right now. We seem to have a nation of hypochondriacs that have been manipulated into this state, running the show here, right? As long as the politicians keep on reacting to the masses, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Ben, yes, thank you so much for joining us and sharing what you've learned, what you've experienced, the highs, the lows that you've gone through Freedom Convoy, and we wish you all the best, and we hope to hear from you again. Yeah,
and I hope if somebody out there found that flag, that they'll reach out to you, and I'd love to have it back. It's precious to me.
100%, and I think it's precious for all Canadians right now to get that back to you, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.